right? And if you want them to start working on Kaizen, that means they need to challenge on something new. And challenge always comes with some kind of mistakes. And if you don't allow people to make mistakes, which we typically do that through KPIs, we need to provide the right support. And if you don't have that psychological, mental support to do something and challenge yourself and occasionally make mistake, but you know that somebody is, helping you from the backside, that you are allowed to make that mistake, that's when the culture becomes more challenging and provide a good Kaizen and stuff. And without providing such a support and expecting that something good will happen because you pay more bonus or whatever, is a fantasy. I think that's what Ronnie was talking about. This happened in the last couple of decades. Is like we try to rationalize that this kind of short-term incentives is the one drive that changes the culture of the people, but it never worked. Look at the bankers, right? It never worked. And we should admit now that that kind of simple incentive doesn't work. It's more about humans supporting humans, and how can we create this network of humans to perform better jobs. And that's my summary. Is it like Ronnie said, it's a lost skills. It is some topic that I don't think the science has captured well. It's a continuous learning process, and that's my summary.
One of the things that I caught on what Obe-san said is human supporting human. I mean, that seems to be a one-liner for me. How about you adding to that? We got 33 seconds. Come on, Lonnie.
Well, if I were going to summarize it in one phrase, I would say, if the first line supervisor's job is not to make sure his people are successful, who's going to do it? Somebody needs to be able for that, and to me, it's a supervisor. And humans supporting humans. I think that's a good summary of it. Is the supervisor really doing that?
So, can you give thumbs up for human supporting humans, for supervision a lost trick? Come on, thumbs up. Obe-san, I can't see your thumb. Lonnie, here we go.
Thanks I'm for it.
Thanks for that. Welcome to Dr. M Wadcast, a Wadcast with a mission, connecting continuous improvement professionals across the world. Hi, thanks for tuning in to Dr. M's SMET show, and you're on episode 4, and I am your host, Dr. M. The guests today who are going to exchange their thoughts are Hide Oba from Nagoya, Japan, and Lonnie Wilson from El Paso, Texas, and they would be exchanging their thoughts on a topic called Supervision, a Lost Skill. This episode is in 3 segments. Segment 1 of 5 minutes, segment 2 of 10 minutes, and segment 3 of 10 minutes. So let's hear them exchanging the thoughts, and we move over to segment 1.
Yes, I am ready.
Lonnie Wilson and Hide Oba-san, welcome to Dr. M's SMET show. Single digit minute exchange of thoughts. And you're on the 4th episode. And this show is divided into 3 segments. The first segment of 5 minutes, the second segment of 10 minutes, and the third segment of 10 minutes. The first segment of 5 minutes, the tag time for each of you is 2.5 minutes, where you introduce yourself and take a stand on the topic that we will be tossing. And then we go to the second segment when you evolve on that. And the third segment, you summarize it. So what I'm trying to request you to develop on is that throughout my career in corporate and what I see, a hierarchy of management. You've got the top management, middle management, and we call it supervisory management. Some people call it leadership. We call it management and frontline managers. I'm really confused as to where the supervision starts and where the supervision ends. So the theme today for us to evolve is supervision, a lost skill. So that's a theme that we are going to talk about, supervision, a lost skill. And what I would do is I go in alphabetical order. So since L comes before O, I give it to Lonnie first, and then I go to Obesan. So Lonnie, Lonnie, your time starts now.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you, Dr. M, and thank you for hosting this. You're hosting a topic that is of incredible passion to me. And I'll explain as we go through why I'm so passionate about it. But let me tell you a little bit about my experience. My experience in direct supervision was in the oil industry, and I was a first line supervisor in several groups. I was a second line supervisor, a third line supervisor, and finally, when I retired from Chevron, I was a senior manager in a refinery and had in terms of supervisors, probably 20 people who were reporting to me in terms of both first and second line supervisors. So it's a topic that's near and dear to me, and something I love to discuss. And I love to discuss it partially because of my history when I was with Chevron. I started with Chevron in 1970. And in 1970, the people we had in supervision were almost to the person cut out of the same mold. And that was they were very good at what they had previously done. If they were a maintenance supervisor, they were a very good mechanic. If they were an operating supervisor, they were a very good operator. And that's what made them a supervisor. Unfortunately, at that time, people were not teaching the human side of supervision. And that is where we were lacking. And in Chevron, we started taking that on, and we actually had a first line supervisor school. Now, the problem that I see is that so many supervisors used to be the best worker, and that's what qualified them to become a supervisor. Okay, but it's changed, and you need to find a way to cultivate the skills and development of your group. Now, in terms of supervision, where it begins and where it ends, I think that's very simple. I think if you have people working for you, although you're a CEO or a mid-level manager or even a first-line supervisor, you have supervisory responsibilities. And I think the responsibility of the supervisor is to get the most out of his people, to create an environment where it's possible for them to excel. So I recognize there's a need to get the work out, but there's a need to get the people developed as well. And so I think the supervision is the mesh of those two qualities.
Obesan,
I will yield the floor.
Lonnie has eaten into a couple of your minutes, but over to you, Obesan. Introduce yourself and take a stand on the topic.
Yeah, Dr. M, thank you for having me, and Ronnie, I'm looking forward for this discussion or conversation. My name is Hide Oba. I am working as a TPS consultant for the last 20 years or so. And I think we discussed before this is my father was one of the TPS guy that was introducing to North America since the early 90s. And this topic about supervision or how to structure the supervision was always on his hot topic for agenda because and I want to be clear on this is that he never said let's add more supervision first. He always said let's Kaizen. And then he always asked, okay, who's the best operator? And just like Ronnie said, well, why we cannot have this best operator to become the team leader so that they can provide the right supervision to the shop floor people. And that's always the controversy because everybody will say that's extra cost and it's not going to make sense. But he always asks for the team leaders, and that's usually like 4 to 6 operators to one team leader. Otherwise, you cannot manage the shop floor properly, the standardized work properly, and you cannot develop the people. So it's always been a hot topic of discussion for him, and that's why I look forward for this conversation.
Yeah, that's a perfect start. And you still have 22 seconds. So let me start the countdown. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16,
Okay, wait.
14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And stop recording the first segment and over to the second segment. From this segment 1, what I can recall is Lonnie saying that if there are people working for you, you have the supervisory responsibility to get the most from these people. And for that, it's your supervisory responsibility to create an environment where they will excel. Obe-san added to that by saying, don't look at supervision and supervisors as additional cost. If I missed capturing something that strikes you, please put it in your comment. Thank you very much, and let's move over to segment 2. So Lonnie and Obe-san, we are into the second segment. The second segment is of 10 minutes, and this time we reverse the order and we go to Lonnie. We go to Obe-san first and then come to Lonnie. You can either use your tag time of 5 minutes, please, or we can exchange ideas. I'll leave it to both of you, and let me start the 10 minutes. Obe-san, your time starts now for the second segment.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Back to the topic of the supervision. Actually, I think it's an interesting discussion. Where does it start and where does it end? And I always find it a little bit difficult to understand where does it start, because that's the right. The word supervision sounds like there's a people and there's a manager, this hierarchical structure behind it. But when I always have this discussion about, well, is a team leader and a group leader, are they labor or management? And this is the part that I always struggle to understand, because theoretically they are hourly, they are paid on hourly. They are in Japan part of the labor unions. So they are not in the management side. They are categorized as the labor side, legally speaking. And there's always been a discussion within my father about, are they really labor and management? And he always asked the question, well, then where does the management end? And that's the part that I think it's get a little bit difficult for us to understand where does the management end, because bottom line is every organization is relying on self-management, right? Is the operators coming to work? Did they drink too much yesterday? Did they rest? Did they have enough food? Are they ready to work today or not? Depends on the self-management of the people. And one of the difficulty there is, right, what's happening right now is we take out those supervisions and layers, but we try to create this financial incentives of something that drives people to come to work. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work, is because, just because I self-manage something, that doesn't mean I can control everything. One of the typical examples is toilets, right? You can't carefully plan when I'm going to use the bathroom. And when you fail to self-manage, do I need to shut down the production, or what am I supposed to do? I heard about some factories distributing like diapers for the adults, and that's like disrespectful. No, it's a real example, right? And so we heavily rely on the self-management system, but we don't provide the support and the mistakes of the system. And that's where I think the supervision mindset comes. It's not like top-down approach. We as a human being has some kind of responsibility to manage ourselves, but it's not always perfect. It's never perfect. And that's the reason why I think we have team leaders and we recommend team leaders, group lead in a heavy ratio is to, when something happens, they are there to support and manage the shop floor better. You don't want the shop floor to go down just because somebody's going to the bathroom. But at the same time, if somebody needs to go to the bathroom, that's very normal. So please go ahead. It's just that the team leaders or the group leaders will jump in and cover the task during that time. So I think the more I think about the supervision is where do you draw the line, and can we really draw that line between the labor and management? And bottom line is right now we need both for the business to be successful. And I really hate this discussion of sort of separating because somewhat management exists in every personnel. Every personnel has some kind of responsibility to manage itself. And it's not always possible to manage everything by yourself. And that's the reason why we need this supervision structure to be more supportive of the, so it may be upside down structure, but that's something I learned. And I think we can open up the discussion here. Am I going to that? Yep.
No, Lonnie, over to you. Yeah, it's
very good, very good.
It's good.
Hide, I think you hit on a couple of things that are just huge. And I'll see if I can weave those into what I was thinking. But as the topic is, it's a lost skill. Unlike you, Hide, I'm almost older than dirt, so I've seen a bunch of stuff. And one of the things I've seen is this transition in supervision that occurred from when I first came to work until what I see now. And when I first came to work, the supervisors were the best at their trade. They were skilled. They knew what to do. They could problem solve. Okay? And consequently, the work very often went smoothly. But they were very heavy-handed. Most of these supervisors were raised during and experienced the Depression, and they experienced World War II. Remember, I went to work in 1970. So at that time, the supervisors, the people who were maybe 50 years old, had experienced the Depression, had experienced World War II. And it was their belief that a job was not a right, it was a privilege. And so when you came to work, you needed to follow the rules. And if you didn't like the rules, go someplace else. That was kind of their attitude. But when the new people came along who didn't have that same type of background, that just didn't work. And they didn't have cohesive work teams. And slowly but surely, I've seen the pendulum swing from the job of a supervisor is to get the work done. That's his primary responsibility, is to make sure that the work is done well, on time, and high quality. If you don't supply your customer with good quality and the volume, you're going to have immediate problems. And the pendulum is swung, and it's going more towards taking care of people and that. And I've seen some places where the supervisors are technically incompetent in the work. And it creates a problem. And you talked about self-management, and I think that's a good point to bring up, because we find out that these supervisors, they kind of will get the washout, but they can't help their people if they have quality problems or they have skill problems or whatever it happens to be. And so the supervisors are not effective. The best definition I've heard of a supervisor is that his job is to make sure that his people are successful. Mm-hmm. Make sure that his people are successful. And in order to do that, they have to have a skill inventory. They have to know right from wrong. Because if their employees aren't performing the task right, they should be there to help them and correct them, not discipline them. In my early years with Chevron, if somebody didn't do something right, you disciplined them. Training was not big on their list. Execution was what was big on their list. And but now I've heard some people say, well, we need to take care of the people first. And that sounds good, but it's not true. The truth is you have to take care of your customer first. Because if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business. Okay. Now there's some companies, I've heard Toyota say that first we develop the people, then we take care of the processes. Well, they can do that, not because it's necessarily the smartest strategy, but because their processes are so good, okay, that they don't need to worry very much about the processes. And so they can focus on the people and then both prosper. But in many businesses, you can't do that. In many businesses, if you said the people are the most important thing, you'd never put in a robot. If you said the people are the most important thing, you would never work towards productivity improvements. Okay? Why? Because productivity improvements usually cause you to lose fewer people. Now, if you're clever, you do productivity improvements without laying anybody off. You just hire later. You work less overtime. There's a variety of things you can do. But this pendulum is swung, and people are saying, "Well, it's all about the people. You got to take care of the people," and you do. Okay. But if you forget about taking care of the work, and you say, "Okay, we're going to have supervisors who take care of our people," but they don't know anything about the work, how are they going to take care of the people? They really can't do their job unless they're technically competent. And so I've run across several of my clients where the supervisors are really not able to help their people. So if you're not really able to help your people, how do you jump in and correct the quality problem? And I love the definition that Paul Hersey has. He wrote a book called Situational Leadership, and I had the glory of taking his class long before he wrote his book. But he said the job of a supervisor is to assure that his people are performing well, and to intercede only as necessary to make sure that occurs. Okay, and so they want to intercede if the people need help, and if they don't, leave them alone. Let them do their work. And I've always enjoyed that and love that definition. So I think what I've seen is that we need to get a better balance. The supervisors need to be able to get the work done, but at the same time, they need to be there to help and support the people. And one of the really, really difficult parts for a supervisor is the communication. That first line supervisor needs to be a link between himself and the management team. And if the supervisory task happens to be of a CEO, he needs to link between the board and his direct supports. Okay. Well, I say I've gone over my time, so
That's fair enough,
hold
but
whatever I have as
that's
thoughts for
sweet.
the next.
We continue this, and both of you can summarize it. And now I'm going to attempt to paraphrase the exchange of thought between the guests. But here are some key words that are captured. Self-management. Support systems are needed for self-management. Need to take care of your customers. Therefore, take care of both the work and the people. And being a link between different layers of management, implying thereby importance of communication. And then we had the concept of situational leadership. Over to the third segment where they will summarize it, and I'm looking forward for the summary. Thank you very much for listening, and please drop in a comment whatever I have missed out on. Thank you very much. Lonnie and Obisan, we are on the third segment of Dr. M's SMET show. And this is a segment in which whatever we have discussed, and the discussion, the flow has been so good. There are a lot of good points that has evolved. And the last segment is again of 10 minutes. And then this is where you discuss, evolve it, and then summarize it for us so that we understand what you mean by supervision. Trick lost, right? Or is that what you're saying? A trick lost, Lonnie? So
Yes.
So Lonnie, your time starts now, and that's 10 minutes. So I'm very generous with you, Lonnie.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. M. The thing about supervision that one of the points I really want to drive home is that it's not just a skill required on the floor by the first line supervisor. It's a skill that's required for everyone who has subordinates. And in the typical business, that's almost everybody except for maybe a staff specialist or two. And so the CEO needs to have supervisory skills. And I found at those levels, at the top levels of management, the supervisory skills are almost non-existent. They kind of assume that the people that are working for them don't need direction, they don't need support, they don't need guidance. And nothing could be further from the truth. Everybody needs support and guidance. not to mention, somebody to communicate with, etc. So I think that the skills of supervision permeate the entire organization from top to bottom. Like my mentor told me, he said the most important person who has supervisory skills is the first line supervisor. They're working directly with the workers who are making the product on time, high quality, to satisfy your customer needs. And those people have not only the most important supervisory task, they have the most difficult supervisory task. One of those difficulties is being a communication link between the upper management and the floor, what really has to transpire. Now, I think that the role of the first line supervisor has been so prostituted over the years in people. So many people have evaluated a supervisor based on what they do rather than what they should do. And what a typical first line supervisor is, they're a traffic cop, a materials expediter, a tools chaser, a forklift driver, and worst of all, a data keeper. And they spend all their time, I shouldn't say all, but a significant amount of their time gathering data so that they can pass that to senior management. And in effect, what they're trying to do is to bring the Gemba to the manager instead of the manager going to the Gemba. And it's a perverse relationship that causes everything to spiral down. Well, that's what managers are. I mean, that's what supervisors on the floor are doing, which is dramatically different than what they should be doing. What they should be doing is working with their people, working with the processes to make sure that the product comes out good on time, and the people enjoy their work as well. And my experience has been that once you train the people in the needed skills and you give them the necessary information, all else will take care of itself. I one time got involved with a manager, and we had a senior manager, and we had a significant difference of opinion about this first line supervisors, and he was complaining that they're grossly overworked. And I said, I don't think they're grossly overworked. I think the system doesn't delegate the authority to people who could do it. So we took on a study, and we did a study, and we asked the supervisors to keep a log and measure the decisions they made and the actions they took. And then we asked them, was there somebody on their crew who could do that? And the universal consensus from all these supervisors was that 80%, actually the number was 78%, of all the activities and decisions they made could be made by people on their crew if the system had good transparency, if they had good information as to what the plans were, if they had good information what the values were, if they had good information of what the goals and objectives were for that shift. The people in the cells could make the decisions. Furthermore, the information they gave us was that they could not only make the decisions faster, but frequently better. Because the thing that the supervisors had the biggest complaint about was they spent 50% of their time either in meetings or gathering data that had nothing to do with their performance. It was just recording information so it could be passed to a higher level of management for whatever they wanted to do. And so what we found out was that the supervisors were not overworked, okay? Not in the sense of doing the things that they should be doing, but they were doing all kinds of things that other people could do much better. To me, that reviewing what supervisors do and going through their jobs and critiquing that is a powerful tool for virtually all the clients I have now or have had.
Lonnie, over to you. Go ahead. Supervision.
Yeah. Ronnie, thank you for the message. I agree everything, and it's so wonderful, powerful that I could end my session here, right? But let me add some of the things that I want to highlight. And one of the things I learned is like the definition of skill is very different right now. It used to be some kind of technique or some kind of know-how to do the jobs on the shop floor. But more than that, today, I think skill is something that we gain from schools, right? It needs to be completely explicit. They don't understand that there's something called tacit know-hows that exists on the shop floor. And I think one of the things that I learned through implementation of standardized work is you need to understand the knacks and the hidden techniques behind something that it's not easy to document, it's not easy to quantify, do exist on the shop floor. And very often we rely on those knacks to get the task done. And that's the reason why we need the experienced team leaders. But again, experience doesn't mean long time. It needs to qualify for that segment. And that's something that we as a management need to continuously try to define that what is that those tacit know-hows are. But that's what I think Toyota is trying to do, is trying to define these tacit know-hows. And behind this is, I think, what I'm learning, what I learned is that I think we don't understand the human beings, right? It's an area that I always find it very mysterious. Is like, if I want to learn about what is the human being, right? Which science textbooks I need to open, right? Do I need to open biology? Do I need to open psychology? Do I need to social science? Or what science am I supposed to use? Because human being itself is such a mysterious topic, and it's a wide variety of things that we need to know to understand. And we are having hundreds of this mysterious creatures sort of expecting that they will self-manage themselves to become perfect. It's not that easy. And that's the reason why I think we have this interaction of supervisor and the human workers is critically important, is because if you want to get the best out of these peoples, right? And if you want them to start working on Kaizen, that means they need to challenge on something new. And challenge always comes with some kind of mistakes. And if you don't allow people to make mistakes, which we typically do that through KPIs, we need to provide the right support. And if you don't have that psychological, mental support to do something and challenge yourself and occasionally make mistake, but you know that somebody is, helping you from the backside, that you are allowed to make that. That's when the culture becomes more challenging and provide a good Kaizen and stuff. And without providing such a support and expecting that something good will happen because you pay more bonus or whatever, is a fantasy. I think that's what Ronnie was talking about. This happened in the last couple of decades. Is like we try to rationalize that this kind of short-term incentives is the one drive that changes the culture of the people, but it never worked. Look at the bankers. Right? It never worked. And we should admit now that, that kind of simple incentive doesn't work. It's more about humans supporting humans, and how can we create this network of humans to perform better jobs. And that's my summary. Is it like Ronnie said, it's a lost skills. It is some topic that I don't think the science has captured well. It's a continuous learning process. And that's my summary. Did I?
We can't hear you, Dr. M.
Okay, it's me.
Yeah, one of the things that I caught on what Obe-san said is human supporting human. I mean, that seems to be a one-liner for me. How about you adding to that? We got 33 seconds. Come on, Lonnie.
Well, if I were going to summarize it in one phrase, I would say, if the first line supervisor's job is not to make sure his people are successful, who's going to do it? Somebody needs to be able for that. And to me, it's a supervisor. And humans supporting humans, I think that's a good summary of it. Is the supervisor really doing that?
So can you give thumbs up for human supporting humans, for supervision a lost trick? Come on, thumbs up. Obe-san, I can't see your thumb. Lonnie, here we go. Thanks
yeah, I'm for it.
Thanks for that. Supervision, a lost skill. That was the theme of episode 4. And our guest has summarized it so well. Humans supporting humans. Everyone needs support and guidance. Thanks for viewing and thanks for listening, and please do add your comments. I'm looking forward to your comments. Thank you very much for being there for us.